Are aliens just us from the future? Future us, future humans, right? Time traveling future human beings that have come back to interact with us for a myriad of reasons, right? To help us, to, keep us from destroying the planet. Maybe there's a catastrophic event that we caused something and they've got to stop it, or they just want to learn from us. Are we part of some simulation theory and they're popping in and out of this? I don't know, right? What are the different theories that are out there? Why am I asking this, Patrick? Well, first of all, I'm Patrick. This is Vetted. This is the video we're talking about today, right? How plausible is this theory that these beings that we're seeing are time traveling us from the future, not aliens at all, in the sense that they're coming from another planet, extraterrestrial, right? Terrestrial. No. Right? No, not dimensions, not ultra civilizations, right? They haven't been living here on this planet. They're time traveling. They're us from the future, right? And their craft, the disc shape, have something to do with that. Different other characteristics that are out there that could give us maybe some indication that that's exactly what this is, right? And it's kind of crazy, right? If we think about it, that sense. And is it possible that there's other beings, right? So it's not just time traveling us from the future. We also have aliens visiting us from other planets, other dimensions, right? Or is it just, it's one, and it kind of, the things that happen make it seem like it's these other things, right? It makes it seems like they're coming from another planet. It makes it seem like they're coming from another dimension. But the whole entire time, the top of the pyramid is, no, they're just time traveling us. Us. It's been us the whole time. All right. Is that the twist at the end of this movie? Our own sixth sense, right? Intergalactic sixth sense, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? It's been us the whole time. I don't know. It would be a great Hollywood alien movie, right? For sure. So anyway, let's dive in. Why am I talking about this? There was an interview with Mike Masters on Jesse Michaels' channel, okay? American Alchemist. He did the David Grush interview, right? And David Grush is in this as well. And we're basically just going to be watching some clips from this to get you guys excited about it. Go watch the entire thing. It's an hour long. It's well worth it. It's so well made. All of his videos are, so support Jesse and his channel. But yeah, let's dive into this, and I'll kind of, add some more commentary as we go. And I've got a story to tell y'all that I think you're going to find quite interesting, and I'm curious to hear some stories from y'all. You'll understand what I mean a little bit later in the video. Let's jump in.
Why would the government even be allowed to have this stuff in their possession if a higher sentience, either didn't want it or wanted it back? And I'm just like, well, but the fact is we do.
Do you believe the US government is in possession of time machine craft?
I think if these things that crashed are time machines, then absolutely.
And you think they're time machine?
I do.
Aliens could potentially be us in the future.
Do you believe in aliens?
And we are fucking aliens all the time.
They can breathe our air, they can have sex with us, they can speak our languages. There's just this suite of characteristics that scream time-traveling future humans.
Dr. Michael P. Masters is a biological anthropologist and professor at Montana Tech University. He's written 3 books, Identified Flying Objects, The Extraterrestrial Model, and recently, Revelation, The Future Human Past. In these works, he lays out a theoretical framework that he's been developing for his entire life, and one that, in my opinion, best explains the UFO phenomena. That aliens are humans from the future who figured out time travel and are coming back to visit us.
If you think about how we're actually evolving as a species, their eyes are sort of slits. You're gonna, have more screen time going forward.
Senses essential for hunter-gatherers.
That's part of my story coming up later. Our evolution, and extrapolating that.
Gathering like smell and hearing matter less than ever, and the gray aliens have very small noses and ears. There's even an evolutionary concept called neoteny, where a species' distant descendants look like its current children, and gray aliens are constantly described as childlike.
They were about the size of the kids. They were, about 3 feet tall.
What's more, the list of credentialed UFO researchers that believe the time travel hypothesis is endless. Navy Commander George Hoover, who held the top secret clearance for most of his life, admitted that the beings in the Roswell crash were just time-traveling humans. And Hermann Oberth, the father of German rocketry and Wernher von Braun's mentor, said that UFOs likely don't traverse large distances in space, they jump from one time-space coordinate to another. Even Spielberg may have included a couple of time travel-related hints in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Because at the end, you see the World War II pilots come out, and they haven't aged at all.
That's true.
That's a subtle little, hey, these guys are time travelers.
Einstein was right.
According
Right? I mean, there's just so many clues that could lead us, right? As we watch this video, what are some other clues that maybe that aren't going to be mentioned in this video, or that you just agree with, right? Tell me down in the comments below. Other things out there that could lead us to believe these are time traveling beings, us. And, you know, I guess something that I'm thinking of that I don't think is brought up in this video is, why do they necessarily have to be us time traveling? Right? Why is that the case? Why do we just assume it's us time traveling back? I don't think that's brought up. I think we just assume, pardon me, they're so human-like, they must be us. That's interesting.
to Deadpool creator Robert Liefeld, Spielberg said to Robert in 1993, "What's easier to believe? That we are being monitored by aliens from another world, or that we are monitoring ourselves and studying us from the future?" And in a recent Newsweek article, Blink-182 frontman and To the Stars Academy founder Tom DeLonge said, "These things aren't coming from other planets. These things might be coming through time."
Like, I'm just saying, you know, I can't get this off my mind. Like, just because we evolved with, you know, smaller noses, ear, right? All these things that are going to be brought up, and part of my story later on, to be honest with you, that could be how all species evolve. I mean, all the senses, eyes, nose, feel, right? Hearing, right? All the senses that we have, I think you need those senses all over the universe, right? The light spectrum, the sound spectrum, physical matter, touching it, right? 3D. Like, I mean, I feel like we need all these things all over the universe, any being, right? Especially an intelligent. So if it were to evolve, you know, in a certain way, I feel like that would just be advanced evolving, right? It's a species that's been around a long time and is using technology to better itself, right? Digital technology, electronic technology based, right? Then it's just going to evolve the same way. So again, the reasons why it's one of the reasons of why people think it is time traveling is that, right? The way it's evolved. Well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that would make it human. I'm just saying, I don't know. Am I wrong here? Am I theorizing wrong here?
Hynek always said, one of J. Allen Hynek's sons, how would they find us and why would they care? They would find us because we're their ancestors. Why would they care about this planet unless they're said to inherit it?
As for the craft, UFOs themselves may simply be time machines. Experiencers almost always report missing time or time anomalies. Strong electromagnetism comes off the craft, which, as we'll get into, makes sense if these crafts are time machines. And finally, many contactees report having to take chemical rinses in what's speculated to be antiseptic liquid, perhaps so they don't contaminate the future with a pathogen that's already been wiped out.
I'm just saying, like, isn't it, why would they, like, if they are time traveling, right? Anytime you see it, like, let's just, you know, as an example, a time traveling movie, those guys go back to a specific date, right? A date and time, like you need a specific date and time, right? Like 3:29 p.m. on this date, like it has to be specific to time travel. But all the sightings are happening all the time. Are they just time traveling to all these random points all the time? That also seems odd, right? It almost, if time traveling were the leading theory, wouldn't there just be like these specific days only and just a few of them, right? Why would they be going back to all these particular random times all the time, right? And throughout history, that would have to be the case. But why now? And why the last 100 years, right? Like, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, why all these random times? So they're just hitting their time travel thing, like, okay, go back to this time, like a bunch of them, right? That seems odd that we would do that. Wouldn't we pick like a specific date and make like a point? Like, we would know not to interfere, I feel like. I mean, we talk about that now. So the fact that they're coming back and interfering, and I'm just, trying to be devil's advocate here for it. Again, I like the theory a lot. I'm just trying to play both sides mentally, throw these things out there, right, to have these questions answered. So please help me in the comments, prove me wrong, answer those questions for me. All right, why all these different times, right? Why are they interacting then with us to affect time, right? Like that also doesn't make sense. Or what am I missing?
I don't think they're necessarily doing anything to us. I think it's for them. I think it's self-preservation, that something in the future requires them to sample gametes from the past.
In this interview, we cover it all.
So they're coming back to sample stuff from us, get stuff from us. But again, all these random points all the time. Why not just one specific point, get it, gone? You would know when there'd be a big group of people somewhere, right? You'd be able to look through the history and know, okay, this is where we can go and get a big sample size from people or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense? Like, you would know, or maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Why this time? Why this time? And again, supposedly these sightings have been happening, for a long time. Or are there multiple reasons they're coming back, right? Different future us groups, corporations, governments are all coming back, right? And which future us, right? Which part of the planet, which culture? Did we all become one culture and we're one species? You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be like if we invented time travel now, like it'd only be one specific group, right? Or whatever. Like, is it a country? Is it a corporation, a group of, this whole idea that like aliens come as like one big group, right? The species is here, and then that's like the entire species. I mean, look at humans. We're broken up into all these small little groups. You couldn't define like what is a human. Yes, we have some similar characteristics, but we're all just so different. All the different cultures and beliefs and morality and right societal norms, like all the different things of where we think society should go, right? All these different cultures, which is where you get wars from, right? So I don't know. I just, again, throwing out these different things. I don't know.
How we might be unwitting participants in an intertemporal breeding program, how the phenomenon relates to biological evolution, and how the crafts would work as time machines in a conventional physics framework. We talk about the nature of time loops, timeline wars, psychic remote viewing, and Mike even shares his own personal experience with the future human visitors.
My eyes went black, and all of a sudden, I feel all of this information coming in my brain. And the other individual standing to my left occasionally would say, "Did you get that? Did you get that?" I'm like, and I can see it coming in. I have no idea what it is.
Wow. And I've talked to people that have espoused that it was almost like a QR code. Downloaded in their brain was the communication.
Along the way, we dropped new revelations from David Grush, the UFO whistleblower from my last video that blew the cover on UFO reverse engineering programs.
I talked to people who really did analyze the stuff from the real deal stuff, and it's super weird. It's like heavy element, europium, californium stuff. It's like in these atomic arrangements that make like no sense.
So on that note, hit subscribe and converge with your future self as you watch.
So, okay, that's the first part, kind of give you a trailer of what the entire video is, right, and what it includes. So we're going to watch a couple small clips from this whole thing, but I definitely want you guys to go watch this on your own. It's great, the whole thing. I couldn't include it all. All right, so let's jump ahead here. Let's get this going.
House Lawn, Vandenberg, or the tarmac at LAX. If
right here. This is it.
UFOs were simply entering our atmosphere from space, you'd probably expect some sort of electromagnetic superhighway coming to and from Earth. But if you talk to any SETI scientist trying to pick up communication signals from space, they'll say the same thing, that space itself is remarkably quiet.
When I started on interviewing people that were totally genuine, and of course uncovering the kind of legacy program that I've talked about, I mean, I lost a lot of sleep. I couldn't even like conceptualize stuff. I mean, even for me, my worldview, which I consider myself an open person, I had trouble even understanding it. And I went back to the Fermi paradox. I'm like, well, why isn't there an overt presence? Why would the government even be, this is how like deep I went. I'm like, why would the government even be allowed to have this stuff in their possession if a higher sentience, either didn't want it or wanted it back or, whatever. You can make up a bunch of notional scenarios that, kind of sound sci-fi. And I'm just like, I kind of went, I'm like, well, but the fact is we do.
Deep.
So it's interesting, right? Like David Grush is saying that some of these craft have just been like left, abandoned. Like what are they? And if the craft themselves are the time traveling, machines, the time travel machines, then that's interesting, right? We just have these time travel machines and don't know how to use them. God help us if we figure that out. Like, what if that's the weird theory that's how we got time travel? And it's a paradox, right? Like we got time travel because we went back and gave it to ourselves. Does that make sense? Like, and that's how the people from the future get it too, because they went back and gave it to themselves, but you never see who invented it. It's just like, it was always there from this point. It's like this weird loop, right? Like, that's the paradox, because does time split on different lines? Is time on a line? Like, it just brings into question what time is when you start talking about time travel. Now you guys talk about what the hell is time anyway, right? It's fascinating to talk about this, to be honest with you, this particular part of the topic.
I believe the U.S. government is in possession of time machine craft.
I think if these things that crashed are time machines, then absolutely.
And you think they're time machine?
I do.
Yeah.
Again, just the disc-shaped craft, because we have this expression in biology that form follows function.
Yeah.
And the form of these machines seems to indicate the function of manipulating space-time and traveling forward and backwards.
And that's just based on Frank Tipler's work?
Not just. It's this whole line of evolution stemming from Einstein's original 1915 paper. You have all of these solutions to his field equations. You have Lenz theory, frame dragging. You have these solutions that show you can tip over those light cones through the rotation of massive objects. We've tested this and shown that even the Earth, as an extremely small planet relative to other exoplanets, also creates this frame dragging effect. Not long after that, you had Van Stockum. You had the
frame drag, I never actually heard this before right now, right? And light cones, frame dragging and light cones, and like okay, let's just assume time travel is possible, right? Okay, now you start to think, how is it plausible, right? What actually nuts and bolts of it, how would it work? And that's where it's mind-bending. And this is like one example of what could be happening. Frame dragging against light cones, something like that. I don't know. Look that up, Google it. There's a lot on it. It's quite interesting, the different theories as well, is, actually how to do it. Fascinating.
Dell universe, where you imagine this infinitely large disk, imagine a galaxy that's infinitely large, where it's creating that same rotational frame dragging and bending over light cones so that you can move into the past. And then importantly, in the 1970s with Frank Tipler, that's all shrunk down to the size that's finite, and it's a rapidly rotating ring, sphere, or disk, as he said. And he shows that you can have all of these same frame dragging, light cone bending over properties with something that sounds exactly like a UFO.
That's interesting. So he's kind of insinuating that he's saying, right, that UFOs that are disc-shaped, right, are disc-shaped to emulate a galaxy, the shape of a galaxy, which is also disc-shaped. So essentially a UFO is a small galaxy, right, form, right? That's what they're trying to emulate, that same sort of function, right? Am I understanding that right? That's what I'm getting from this. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong there.
They're seen rotating, they're seen popping in and out of space-time.
I'm not saying our theoretical frameworks are correct, but we really do have physics explanations on how the UAPs jump around or whatever. That's totally an effect of an Alcubierre style warp bubble. So that would be light being blue shifted into the ultraviolet as it's lensed across the bubble that the craft creates.
It's a blue shift not just in light, that takes it up into that shortwave radiation area that causes temporary damage to people, but also time is shifted as a result of that. Like everything within that region in and around this, what Jim Peniston called a sphere of influence, where he felt like he was walking through water, like everything within proximity to that craft was different, it was shifted. So there's a lot of things like that that indicate that in proximity to these craft, they are manipulating the rate at which time flows. And if you have that ability, what's stopping you from going back through it? But that
Fascinating, right? Just absolutely fascinating. Like it goes over my head a little bit, but I guess they're bending light and shifting light in such a way that they get in the light, right? Like, I don't know, my mind gets blown. Like, some of the best time travel movies, honestly, like let's say Looper, for example, right? Where they start trying to talk about time travel and it's just like, you know what, it's gonna blow your mind if we do. Like, it's just too mind-bending, so let's just not talk about it. And they never really explain how it works in the film. Those time travel movies always work the best, because when you do try to explain, it just becomes this whole paradox, right? The grandfather paradox, Back to the Future paradox, right? So it's quite fascinating to just theorize about this, to be honest. All right, let's jump ahead here. Last clip.
Importantly, the manipulation of space-time.
So do you have a sense of the current engineering limitations on our own ability to build these time machines?
A, if these are time machines. B, if we've received them as crashed or landed vehicles, which was an interesting thing to hear that's come out of David Grush's testimony, is that seemingly some of them are gifted, intact objects. That sort of gives us a leg up. But then it's still this question of what is time if there's time travel?
I talked to people who really did analyze the stuff from the real deal stuff, and it's super weird. It's like heavy element, europium, californium stuff. It's like in these atomic arrangements that make like no sense. This is through X-ray diffraction, where they can image the shadows of the atomic pairs and stuff. And it's like, why is all these crazy heavy elements in this like weird ceramic metal hull structure, and we don't understand the emergent metamaterial properties.
And
it's what's going on?
And we can't configure atoms. You can get down to 0.2 nanometers or something as far as
there's certain techniques out there that they're augmenting some X-ray diffraction technologies where you can get down to sub-angstrom. But most techniques are like 2 to 5 angstrom, which you can't directly image the atoms, but you can see the shadows and some of the configurations. But we're getting to where we can actually image the atoms.
It's interesting what comes.
So if this is, these craft are being abandoned, right? And we're trying to understand them. I mean, we just can't even understand what's happening with these craft. Like trying to reverse engineer them is kind of a joke, right? Like we don't even understand why they did what they did. I mean, it essentially is that whole story of sending like a motorcycle back to, 2,000 years ago, right? And just dropping it off. And I mean, they wouldn't know what gas is. They wouldn't know what the handlebar brakes, like all like headlight, right? How to turn it on, like ride it, right? Like it just crazy, right? So, fascinating. So anyway, all right, that's it on the clips for this. Again, go check out this interview, Jesse Michaels, Mike Masters, and David Grush. Fascinating. Here's my story that I wanted to tell. Basically, a long time ago, in the early 2000s, I was in a band, and my early 20s, and I, started experimenting, right, with pot. I was smoking a lot of pot and used to hang out in my music studio, rehearsal studio, right, and I would just think about stuff and write lyrics and all this stuff, and, I was not really into UFOs and this sort of stuff, right, like whatever, just... I was into music, honestly, at that time. And I don't know why, just one day I just had this thought that, like, again, no outside influence, okay? Just a thought on my own, just thinking on my own. I just started thinking, God, these aliens, like, I must have seen a movie or something. I just thought, what if they're not aliens? Like, they're us from the future, because I started to think, well, if we evolved, technology, right? Just had that thought about like technology, like we're gonna be more dependent on technology as we evolve, and our muscles become smaller, our heads will get bigger, right? Just all these different things of like what aliens look like, right? And that's literally on my own with no outside influence had that thought, which it led me to believe now later, right? Like lots of other people must have had that thought on their own without any outside influence, right? Just this independent thought about that, because it seems kind of obvious when you start to just let your mind wander and think about it, And I started I was literally something I thought about 20 years ago, on my own, just that made sense, and that's who's us coming back to visit us. And I thought I was onto something phenomenal. Oh my God, nobody's thought of this. This is crazy. Oh my goodness, I've figured it out, And then I come to later find out that, lots of people had already thought of this, right? So, but it seemed obvious. But again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, now that I think about it more, just spitballing here, right? Like all species would evolve like that. I really think we need all the senses that we have. Other species on other planets have the same senses. I don't see how that would change. I just don't, at least in this reality that we're in, this universe, right? I just see that as being stuff we need. So I think noses, eyes, ears, I think, being able to touch things, right? Feel things, pain, right? Nerve ending. Like I think bone structure, muscular structure, I think these are things that just exist all over the universe, right? Biologically. I really think that's how things are. Now, depending on atmosphere, you can have different whatever, but we're going to need senses. You need the senses that encompass your environment, right? There are species on this planet, for instance, that develop certain senses and don't develop others because of their environment. So, but senses are a part of it. It's how we interact with, reality around us. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's us from the future, right? These things that are being used, time travel is what a lot of the clues are for, the time traveling. But who's actually doing the time traveling? That doesn't necessarily mean it's us, right? It could still be beings from another planet. It could be both. It could be time traveling aliens, right? Not us from the future. But again, who knows? Or a mix, right? Are we the only ones? How plausible is this time travel explanation? And what are the other popular explanations for what it could be? And can it be multiple? For it to be multiple, for it to be like interdimensional and time traveling and extraterrestrial and ultra-terrestrial, here they've been on this planet the whole time. That seems weird that it's all of these. That's unlikely to me, right? To me, it's one thing, probably. Now, could it be multiple species doing one thing, right? Traversing time only? Yes, that's possible. But I don't know how it could be all of these theories. Time traveling future us does sound very plausible, and I like it a lot. I like this theory a lot. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Very excited to read all the comments about this and what y'all think of this. Again, don't forget to check out Jesse Michael's interview featuring David Grush and Mike Masters. I'm Patrick. This is Vetted. Have a happy Sunday. Got the Christmas stuff up. Time to start celebrating the holidays. They're here. So, all right, guys. See you tomorrow on another video. This is Patrick with Vetted. As always, remember, every day is a gift. Peace.